Hello, and welcome to our channel. We're delighted to have you with us today for a story that unfolds in the quiet tension of a historic moment. Picture the thin mist of dawn cloaking Buckingham Palace, where the first light of day casts a soft glow on the iconic stone facade. A UTS officer strides forward, his eyes brimming with challenge, and issues a commanding order to a royal guard to salute him. But what happens next leaves the entire courtyard stunned, transforming into a profound lesson in honor that reverberates around the world. Before we dive deeper into this remarkable encounter, we'd love to hear from you. What would you do when faced with pressure from authority versus standing by your principles? Please share your thoughts in the comments below and hit that subscribe button to ensure you don't miss more inspiring stories of resilience and honor. Now, let's step into the heart of this misty morning and meet the two men whose clash of wills captivated everyone present. The scene is set at Buckingham Palace, a symbol of British tradition and monarchy, where the air is crisp with the promise of a new day. The mist swirls gently around the courtyard, softening the edges of the palace gates as early tourists and onlookers gather. Their voices a low murmur of curiosity and reverence. The royal guards stand at their posts, their scarlet tunics and towering bearskin hats, a striking contrast against the grey dawn, embodying centuries of discipline and duty. Among them is Sergeant James Finch, a man whose very presence radiates unyielding resolve. Finch, at the two, is a seasoned soldier, having faced combat in Syria during classified missions with the British Army, where he once dragged a wounded comrade to safety under enemy fire. His body bears the scars of those years, a mark on his forearm from shrapnel, a slight limp in cold weather, but it's his mind that sets him apart, forged with a discipline that mirrors the legacy of the crown he serves. To Finch, his role as a royal guard is not mere ceremony. It's a sacred duty, a testament to honor, loyalty, and resilience. His goal is singular: to uphold royal protocol, to protect the honor of the monarchy, no matter who stands before him or what pressures arise. As the mist clings to his uniform, Finch stands ready, unaware that a test of his principles is about to unfold under the watchful eyes of history. Striding into this scene with an air of undeniable authority is Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Sterling, a Marine officer whose career spans over 2 decades of command in conflict zones like Iraq and Afghanistan. At 45, Sterling has led units through the chaos of Fallujah, negotiated ceasefires in Kandahar's mountains, and emerged from firefights with scars and stories that command both respect and fear. His authority is absolute, his orders typically followed without question, and he wears his confidence like a second skin. To him, the traditions of the British monarchy are quaint anachronisms, a parade of pomp with little relevance in the modern world, a view he's voiced often to peers and even British officers at NATO briefings. Today, as part of a visiting delegation, Sterling sees an opportunity to assert his dominance, to prove his influence by forcing a royal guard to salute him, thereby affirming his status before allies. His polished boots echo on the cobblestones as he approaches Finch, his entourage trailing behind, their expressions a mix of deference and unease. The small crowd of early tourists, palace staff, and a few journalists watch in uneasy silence, sensing the brewing storm as Sterling stops just inches from the guard. With a gaze full of challenge, Sterling locks eyes with Finch, his voice cutting through the misty morning like a blade. "Salute me now. That's an order." The command rings out across the courtyard, sharp and unyielding, sending a ripple of shock through the onlookers. Tourists pause, their cameras momentarily forgotten as they process the audacity of the demand. A few exchange worried glances, while others raise their phones, eager to capture what might unfold. Palace staff whisper nervously among themselves, one young woman in a navy blazer murmuring, "Can he do that?" The tension is palpable, a heavy silence descending as every eye turns to Finch, waiting for his response. But Sergeant James Finch remains utterly motionless. His face is impassive, his eyes fixed on the horizon with disciplined focus. Not even acknowledging Sterling's presence, his hands stay steady on his rifle, not a muscle twitching, not a breath out of place. His training is a Fortress Royal Guard salute, only the British royal family or those designated by command, not foreign officers, no matter their rank. The silence that follows is louder than Sterling's command, a profound stillness that speaks of unyielding honor. The crowd senses the weight of the moment, their faces shifting from curiosity to concern as the mist swirls around the two men. Sterling's patience frays as the seconds tick by with no response, his face flushing with irritation. His jaw tightens, his pride wounded by what he perceives as defiance, and he steps even closer, his voice dripping with mockery. "You're just a relic in a costume." The insult cuts through the morning air, each syllable a deliberate provocation, and the crowd gasps softly. Tourists show shock, their murmurs rising, while a journalist scribbles faster, sensing a story. Sterling, his frustration boiling over, reaches out, brushing Finch's scarlet tunic with a dismissive gesture, his fingers grazing the fabric in a blatant breach of protocol. The act stuns the onlookers further, a young woman in a red coat whispering. He touched him. Among the crowd, a retired British soldier, Major Arthur Wells, stands taller, his grey scarf catching the breeze, his weathered face darkening with disapproval. He grips his scarf tightly, muttering to those nearby. That's a line crossed. The mist thickens, the palace gates glowing softly in the background, a silent witness to the mounting drama. But Finch remains still, his expression unchanging, though a subtle flicker of resolve in his eyes betrays his awareness of the insult. His discipline holds, a quiet dignity emphasized by the soft shadows of dawn clinging to his form. The standoff reaches its peak as Sterling's provocation demands a response, the air crackling with the weight of the moment. Finch, trained to protect the crown's honor, finally acts with a measured gesture. He gently brushes Sterling's hand away, his movement precise and controlled, his eyes still fixed forward. In a calm, steady voice, he speaks. "My duty is to the crown, not external command." The words are quiet, but carry an unshakable authority, a reminder of the protocol that governs his role. The crowd holds its breath, the journalist's pen pausing, Major Wells nodding in silent approval. At that moment, a British officer, Captain Edward Harrow, steps forward from the palace gates, his face a mixture of sternness and pride. With a clipped but professional tone, he addresses Sterling directly. "Sergeant Finch is correct. His duty is to the crown, and he has followed protocol to the letter. Your actions, Colonel, are a breach of decorum." Sterling's jaw tightens, his eyes narrowing. But before he can respond, his superior, Colonel Robert Davies, intervenes. A seasoned diplomat as much as a soldier, Davies recognizes the potential for a diplomatic incident. He places a hand on Sterling's shoulder, his voice low but firm, ordering him to stand down. Sterling complies, his movements stiff with barely contained fury, and withdraws to his convoy, his men following in uneasy silence. The crowd exhales, their murmurs now filled with admiration for Finch. As Major Wells steps forward, his voice weathered but authoritative. "You mistake silence for weakness, young man. That guard's seen more steel than you'll ever know." His words carry over the courtyard, a final rebuke as Sterling retreats, his expression rigid, his eyes downcast with reluctant reflection. As the tension dissipates, Finch returns to his position, his stance as solid as ever, becoming an enduring symbol of discipline and honor. The crowd watches in quiet respect, some offering nods of appreciation, others resuming their filming with a newfound reverence. The mist begins to lift, the dawn light sharpening on the Union Jack fluttering above, its colors vivid against the sky. The incident doesn't fade with the morning. It spreads through news outlets and social media, becoming a widely discussed lesson in the strength of tradition and loyalty. Finch's name is etched into the annals of the Queen's Guard, and months later, as depicted in dramatized accounts like those on YouTube, he's awarded a commendation for exemplary service in a private ceremony at Buckingham Palace. Across the ocean, Sterling, at a NATO conference in Brussels, approaches a British general with a more subdued demeanor, admitting in a voice stripped of bravado, "Your man Finch, he was right to hold his ground." A moment of respect passing between them. The story inspires others in unexpected ways. A student in Manchester writes an essay on discipline, earning a scholarship, while a young soldier in Germany resolves to perfect his ceremonial drills, determined to honor his own traditions. It becomes a tale not just of a clash, but of the enduring power of standing firm for what matters most. And that brings us to the heart of this remarkable story. Have you ever had to choose between authority and principle? Between bending to pressure or standing by your values? What would you have done in Sergeant Finch's boots, facing a direct challenge to your duty with unwavering silence? We'd love to hear your stories and thoughts. Share them in the comments below. And let's start a conversation about resilience and honor in the face of adversity. And if this story moved you, if you're inspired by tales of steadfastness and duty, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Hit that button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. We're dedicated to bringing you narratives that challenge and uplift, and your support makes it all possible. Let's reflect a bit more on what unfolded that misty dawn at Buckingham Palace. Because there's so much to unpack from this brief but intense encounter. The setting itself carries immense weight. Buckingham Palace isn't just a backdrop. It's a symbol of British history, of monarchy, of traditions that have stood the test of time. The Royal Guards, with their iconic uniforms and unyielding stance, represent a legacy of discipline recognized worldwide. For Finch to stand firm against Sterling's demand wasn't just a personal act of defiance. It was a defense of that legacy, a reminder that some duties transcend individual ego or foreign authority. For many of us over 45 who've perhaps lived through or witnessed moments where tradition clashed with modernity, this story might resonate deeply. Maybe you faced situations where you had to uphold a principle or value against pressure, whether in a professional role, a family setting, or a personal stand. Finch's example mirrors those moments, showing that true strength often lies in quiet resolve rather than loud confrontation. Have you ever stood your ground in such a way? We'd love to hear about it in the comments. Let's consider Sterling's perspective for a moment, because understanding both sides adds depth to this narrative. As a U.S. Marine officer with decades of command in high-stakes environments, Sterling is accustomed to instant obedience, to having his authority acknowledged without question. His experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan, as dramatized in accounts like those on YouTube, shaped a worldview where power is asserted through direct action and compliance. To him, the traditions of the British monarchy might seem outdated, a quaint display rather than a living duty, a view he's expressed openly in military circles. When he demanded a salute from Finch, it wasn't just about protocol, it was about validating his status, proving his influence even on foreign soil. But in doing so, he misjudged the context. Royal Guards salute only the royal family or designated command, a rule rooted in centuries of tradition, not personal deference to any officer, no matter their rank. Sterling's provocation, including touching Finch's uniform, was a breach of decorum that clashed with an institution where individual ego has no place. For us, especially those who've navigated cross-cultural or professional settings with rigid protocols, this might recall moments where good intentions or assumptions led to conflict. How have you handled such misunderstandings? Share your experiences with us in the comments. Let's also think about the crowd's role, because their reactions shaped the moment as much as the actions of Finch and Sterling. The onlookers, early tourists, palace staff, journalists, and a retired soldier like Major Wells became an unintended audience to a drama they didn't expect. Their initial curiosity turned to concern as Sterling's demand went unanswered, their gasps and whispers amplifying the tension when he mocked and touched Finch. As depicted in YouTube narratives, public response often sways between shock and admiration in such clashes, with Major Wells' rebuke echoing a collective sentiment of respect for the Guards' resolve. Their presence added pressure to both men for Sterling. The weight of their stares deepened the sting of retreat. For Finch, it reinforced why he couldn't break, knowing they witnessed a display of British discipline. For those of us who've acted under public scrutiny, whether in small or large ways. This might bring to mind how an audience can influence a moment of decision. How do you respond when others are watching? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let's linger on the intervention of the officers, because their roles were pivotal in resolving the standoff. Captain Edward Harrow, Finch's commanding officer, stepped forward with a stern yet proud demeanor, affirming Finch's adherence to protocol and calling out Sterling's breach, a moment of institutional support often highlighted in similar dramatized stories. Colonel Robert Davies, Sterling's superior, recognized the risk of a diplomatic incident, ordering a retreat with a diplomat's tact, preventing escalation as noted in accounts of such military culture clashes. Their actions de-escalated a situation teetering on the edge, a skill of balancing authority with restraint. For many of us who've mediated conflicts or navigated high-stakes situations, whether in professional or personal spheres, this might recall the importance of calm intervention. How have you diffused tension in a critical moment? Share your stories with us in the comments. Let's explore the broader impact of this incident, because its ripples extended far beyond that misty morning. The stories spread through news and social media, as dramatized in YouTube videos, turned it into a global lesson on discipline and tradition, with Finch receiving a commendation and Sterling reflecting on his era at a later NATO conference. It inspired others, a student's essay on discipline, a soldier's renewed commitment to drills, showing how single acts can influence beyond the immediate. This echoes real-life sentiments, where public clashes over protocol spark wider discussions on honor and duty. For us, especially those over 45 who've seen societal values shift, this might prompt reflection on how small moments shape larger narratives. When have you seen an incident inspire unexpected change? We'd love to hear about it in the comments. Let's imagine for a moment what might have happened if Finch had responded differently, if he'd broken protocol to salute Sterling. It's unlikely given his training, but worth considering. Such an act might have softened the moment for Sterling, affirming his authority, but at the cost of undermining the very tradition Finch upholds. The story wouldn't be one of honor triumphing over ego. It would be of a guard bending under pressure, potentially setting a precedent that protocol is negotiable. Within his unit, it might have been seen as a lapse, and for future guards, it could blur the lines of duty. This hypothetical underscores the stakes of Finch's stillness, the weight of a choice made in seconds. For those of us who faced decisions where bending seemed easier than standing firm, this might recall the long-term impact of such choices. What would have guided you in Finch's position? Share your reflections with us in the comments. Let's also reflect on Sterling's aftermath, because his journey didn't end with his retreat. As depicted in dramatized accounts, his initial defiance gave way to doubt in quiet moments, replaying Finch's calm authority, eventually leading to a subdued admission of respect at a NATO conference. This shift mirrors themes in military stories, where confrontation leads to personal growth, even if reluctant. For many of us who've misjudged a situation or faced humbling lessons, this might bring to mind how we learn from errors under public scrutiny. How have you grown from a moment of misstep? We're eager to hear your experiences in the comments. Let's circle back to Finch's enduring image, because his stance at Buckingham Palace became more than a moment. It became a symbol, returning to his position after the incident. His solid demeanor under the lifting mist and dawn light embodied discipline, a living testament to the values he serves. As noted in YouTube narratives, his commendation and the story's legacy etched his name into history, inspiring others to uphold their own principles. For us, it might prompt thoughts on how we embody our own values in daily life. What symbols of honor do you carry? Share with us in the comments. Let's keep this conversation alive, because stories like Finch's and Sterling's remind us of the delicate balance between authority and principle. Every detail, the misty dawn, the crowd's tension, the officer's intervention, the global impact adds to a narrative of resilience and duty. It challenges us to think about our own tests of resolve, our own moments of standing firm or learning from missteps. What defines honor for you? How do you navigate pressure against your values? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's continue exploring these profound questions together. And if you're moved by tales of steadfastness, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories that inspire and challenge. Your support keeps us sharing these powerful moments.